speak, but I figured I needed to defend my colleague from California who introduced this bill. I don't know Marty Davis. I don't know Cambria. What I do know is that there's a facility in rural South Carolina in a largely African-American community that employs a lot of folks in this field. And they manufacture this stone slab.
And those workers are being hurt?
It's my time, sir. When you go to that facility, before you prejudge them, which you seem to be doing with impunity, you will see that their operation is safe. You will see that they're operating lawfully, and that even though when you go to mine courts, you're subject to the Mine Safety and Health Administration under the Mine Act. When you mine that courts, state mining and other state agencies also regulate the mining of quartz. The EPA regulates this for water and environmental impacts when you mine that quartz. And then when you process that quartz at a place like Cambria, which you guys have used as a red herring to target Trump, or any other facility in the United States, there's water discharge regulations there. There's air emissions, the Clean Air Act, you've got to be permitted for, the new source performance standards you're subject to, the hazardous air pollutant regulations where applicable. These are governed pretty tightly by our own federal government. And if you go to a place that manufactures these, you will see because they're subject to those federal regulations, you will see a pretty good operation because at any moment's notice, a federal agency could show up to make sure that you are compliant. But here's the rub, and I think this is where the gentleman from California is going, where I think it is. When a manufacturer of these stone slabs puts these stone slabs into the stream of commerce, normal people who are professional know that you have to cut with water, that you cannot do a dry cut because of the silica. There is an exposure limit that is in federal regulations, and most people cut it according to how it's supposed to be cut so that there is a minimal impact. There is a concentration requirement that's in the air, that's in federal regulations so that workers would not be exposed to this. But you know where the rub happens actually is in California under sanctuary policies that have encouraged illegal immigration. Bad actors, employers, are pulling these people in. They're cutting these stone slabs without fear of the damage that it might cause the employer. They don't care about the employees themselves. There are lawful people who are doing this in a great way that's providing a great service to the American people, a great product to the American people. But these individuals in California, I think where the gentleman is from, are doing this, and now there are lawyers out there that say, well, you know what, there's some deep pocket somewhere we can go do this. No, how about go after the bad actors that are doing this? How about state regulators going after the bad actors in California who are employing people and not doing it according to our own federal regulations? That's where the liability rests. That's where the fault rests, not with the people who are creating the products. Sure, there are health risks associated with this. There's also federal regulations already on the books that govern the creation, the manufacturing, the mining, and yes, indeed, the cutting of these stone slabs that are retrofitted for houses. So why would we now go after, y'all want to talk about Cambria and whoever likes Trump. I'm talking about real-world impacts in South Carolina. What does a salesman have to do with how somebody chooses to cut or not cut a stone slab? Has nothing to do with it. There are disclosure requirements on these stone slabs when they go out in the first place. I mean, I think that's fairly accurate. If we want to talk about the adequacy of federal regulations, we can do that. But to open up a salesman or a manufacturer of these products to liability when all they've done is just create a product, they're not the ones cutting it, they're not the ones employing these individuals, they're not the ones without proper equipment or ventilation in these sweatshops in California. Why aren't we going after them? Y'all want to go after the people who are creating jobs in rural South Carolina. Why not go after the people who are really the culprits here? With that, I yield back.